stood alone in the communication room. Her hands shook as she reached for the transmitter. The room was dark and cold. Outside, she could hear the sounds of her people crying. Another child had died that morning, the fourth one this week. She was not supposed to be here. Elder had forbidden any contact with outside species. He believed they should handle their own problems. He believed asking for help was weakness, but had not held the dying children in his arms. He had not watched mothers weep over small bodies that grew cold too quickly. The plague had come without warning. It started with a cough, then fever. Then the skin turned gray and hard. Within days, the infected could not breathe. Within weeks, hundreds were dead. The healers tried everything. Nothing worked. Their medicine was not strong enough. And that was not their only problem. The mining equipment had broken down 2 months ago. Without it, they could not harvest the crystals that they traded for supplies. Without trade, they had no money. Without money, they could not buy medicine from other species. They were trapped in a circle of death with no way out. Looked at the transmitter. She knew about the humans. Everyone in the galaxy knew about them. They were young. They had only been traveling the stars for 200 years, but in that short time they had built an empire that stretched across 1,000 worlds. They fought wars with each other. They fought wars with aliens. They were loud and violent and unpredictable. But she had also heard other stories. Stories that the Galactic Council did not like to share. Stories about human ships arriving at disaster zones before anyone else. Stories about human doctors working for free in alien hospitals. Stories about human soldiers dying to protect species they had never met. She did not know which stories were true, but she knew one thing for certain. Her people were dying, and no one else was coming to help. She pressed the button and began to speak. "This is Counselor of Colony 7. We are located in Sector 19 of the Outer Territories. We are facing a medical emergency. A plague has killed 300 of our people in the past month. Our healers cannot stop it. Our mining equipment has also failed. We cannot trade for medicine. We are asking for help. We need antibiotics. We need spare parts for our machines, please. If anyone can hear this message, we need help." She paused, her throat was tight. She added one more line. "We will pay whatever we can. We have nothing now, but we will find a way, please." She ended the transmission and sat in the darkness. She did not know if anyone would answer. She did not know if anyone cared about a small colony on the edge of nowhere. She closed her eyes and prayed to the old gods that someone was listening. The door opened behind her. Light flooded the room. She turned and saw Elder standing in the doorway. His face was hard and angry. "What have you done?" he demanded. "What I had to do," replied. Her voice was steady now. She was too tired to be afraid. "You sent a message to the humans," stepped into the room. His tall frame cast a long shadow. "Do you know what you have done? Do you know what they are?" "I know what we are," said. "We are dying. Every day more of us die. Our children are dying. I held Little in my arms this morning. She was 5 years old. She asked me if she was going to get better. I lied to her. I told her yes. She died an hour later." Looked away. For a moment his hard face softened, but only for a moment. "The humans are dangerous," he said. "They do not help without wanting something in return. They will take our colony. They will make us slaves. They will." "They will what?" stood up. "They will kill us. We are already dying. They will take our resources. We have nothing left. They will enslave us. At least slaves are alive." "You do not understand them." "And you do," shook her head. "You have never met a human. You have only heard stories. The same stories that the old empires tell because they are afraid. The humans grow too fast. The humans are too strong. The humans do not follow the old rules. Maybe that is exactly what we need. Someone who does not follow the old rules, because the old rules are letting us die." Had no answer for that. He stood in silence for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away. At the door he stopped. "If they come," he said quietly, and if they destroy us, it will be on your hands." "If they do not come," replied, "we will be dead anyway. At least I tried." Left, the door closed, was alone again in the darkness. 3 days passed. The plague continued to spread. 12 more died. The healers worked without sleep. Young, the most talented of them, had dark circles under his eyes. He had not eaten in 2 days. He refused to stop working. Every patient he lost was a wound on his soul. Visited the sick ward every day. She held hands. She told stories. She sang the old songs that her mother had taught her. It was all she could do. She was not a healer. She could not cure the sick. She could only comfort them as they died. On the 3rd night, she was sitting beside an old male named. He had been a miner before the equipment broke, strong and proud. Now he was thin and gray, his breath coming in short gasps. "Counselor," he whispered, "did anyone answer?" She had not told anyone about the transmission, but somehow they all knew. Hope spread faster than plague. "Not yet," she admitted. Nodded slowly. "They will come," he said. "The humans, I met one once long ago when I was young and traveled the trade routes. He was strange, loud, he laughed too much. But when raiders attacked our ship, he fought like a demon. He took a blade meant for me. When I asked him why, he said it was because we were crew. We had known each other for 3 days. Listened. She had never heard this story before. "They are strange creatures," continued. "They feel too much. They care too much. It makes them dangerous, but it also makes them kind. They will come, counselor, you will see." He closed his eyes. His breathing slowed. Thought he had fallen asleep. Then the breathing stopped. She sat beside him for a long time, holding his cold hand. The next morning, the alarm sounded. Ran to the observation deck. Other were already there, staring at the screens with wide eyes. Elder stood at the front, his face unreadable. "What is it?" pushed through the crowd. "What is happening?" Then she saw the screens, and she understood why everyone was silent. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace. Not one ship, not two. She counted them as they appeared: 5, 10, 15, 17. 17 ships. Some were huge, bigger than any vessel she had ever seen. Others were sleek and fast, covered in weapons. They moved in perfect formation, spreading out around the colony like a protective shell. A transmission came through, a calm voice speaking in the common tongue. "Colony 7, this is Captain Menu Park of the United Nations Earth Ship Solidarity. We received your distress call. We are here to help. Please respond." Looked at Elder, his face was pale. "What have you done?" he whispered. But was not listening. She was staring at the ships, 17 ships, for a colony that had asked for antibiotics and spare parts. She began to laugh. Tears rolled down her face. She did not know if she was happy or terrified. The humans had come. Captain Menu Park stood on the bridge of the Solidarity and watched the colony grow larger on the... It was a small settlement. A few hundred buildings clustered around a central dome. Mining equipment scattered across the gray landscape. Nothing special, nothing valuable. Just a few thousand people trying to survive on the edge of nowhere. He thought about the message they had received 4 days ago. A woman's voice, tired and desperate, asking for antibiotics and spare parts. Such a small request, such simple needs. When he brought the message to Admiral, he expected a single cargo ship to be sent, maybe 2. Instead, the Admiral had looked at the star charts. He had read the intelligence reports about raiders in the area. He had studied the population data and the death toll from the plague. Then he had picked up his communicator and called 7 other ship captains. "We do not send doctors into a war zone without protection," the Admiral had said. "And we do not send half measures to people who are dying." Now here they were, 17 ships, 3 hospital vessels with full medical staff, 4 engineering ships with repair equipment and construction materials, 2 supply carriers loaded with food and medicine, and 7 warships, including the Solidarity, forming a defensive ring around the colony. It was, by any measure, too much. They had asked for a band-aid. Earth had sent an army. Minyu smiled. This was why he loved his species. The first shuttle landed an hour later. Minyu led the team personally. Behind him came Doctor, the chief medical officer, carrying 3 cases of equipment. Chief Engineer Shin followed with a tablet full of repair plans. Lieutenant, the communications officer, walked beside them, ready to translate. They were waiting at the landing pad. Minyu counted about 50 of them. They were tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and large dark eyes. They looked afraid. Some of the younger ones hid behind the adults. A few of the older ones held simple weapons, knives and tools that would be useless against human armor. Minyu stopped a few meters away. He removed his helmet so they could see his face. He smiled, trying to look friendly. "I am Captain Minyu Park," he said. "We are here to help." A female stepped forward. She was smaller than the others, but she stood straight and proud. Minyu recognized her voice from the transmission. "I am Counselor," she said. "I sent the message. We did not expect so many." "We believe in being prepared," Minyu said. An older male pushed through the crowd. His face was hard and suspicious. "I am Elder. I lead this colony. Your ships are impressive, Captain, but I must ask why you brought warships to answer a request for medicine." Minyu met his eyes. "Because we read the reports about raiders in this sector. Because we know they attack weak colonies. Because we did not want to send our doctors and engineers into danger without protection." "You expect an attack." "We prepare for one. There is a difference." Studied him for a long moment. Then he stepped aside and gestured toward the colony. "Very well, come, see what you have come to save." The tour of the colony was difficult. The sick ward was the worst. Rows and rows of beds filled with dying. The smell of death hung in the air. Children cried for their parents. Parents wept over their children. The healers moved between the beds like ghosts, exhausted and hopeless. Doctor did not waste time on emotion. She pulled out her scanner and began examining patients immediately. A young healer named watched her with wide eyes. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Getting data," replied without looking up. "I need to understand the pathogen, its structure, its weakness. Once I know how it works, I can kill it." "Our healers have tried for months. They could not find a weakness." Finally looked at him. Her eyes were kind but determined. "Your healers did their best with what they had. Now they have me, and I have better tools." She worked for 6 hours straight. She took samples. She ran tests. She analyzed data on her tablet while walking between patients. Followed her like a shadow, asking questions, learning everything he could. Meanwhile, Shin led his engineering team to the mining site. The equipment was old and damaged. Most engineers would have declared it, just laughed. "This is nothing," he told his team. "Remember the reactor on Station 12? That was a real problem. This is just rust and bad maintenance." He organized his people with quick efficiency. Teams spread out across the site. Welding torches sparked. Machines hummed. The sound of construction filled the air for the first time in months. A group of young miners watched from a distance. They whispered to each other, pointing at the human equipment. After an hour, one of them gathered enough courage to approach. "Can we help?" he asked. Grinned, "Can you hold a wrench?" "Yes." "Then you can help. Come, I will teach you." By the end of the day, the miners were working alongside the human engineers. They laughed together. They shared food. Language was a barrier, but tools were universal. A bolt was a bolt in any language. That evening, Elder found Captain Minyu standing alone on an observation platform. The human was watching the stars. The 7 warships hung in the darkness above, their lights blinking slowly. "I have a question," said. "Ask." "Why did you bring so much? We asked for so little. Antibiotics, spare parts. We could not pay you for more. We have nothing. Why did you bring an army to save a colony that has nothing to offer?" Minyu was quiet for a moment. Then he turned to face the elder. 200 years ago, he said, my species was alone. We lived on one planet. We had no allies, no friends. When disaster struck, no one came to help us. We suffered through famines. We suffered through plagues. We watched our children die because we had no one to ask for help. Millions of my people died because we were alone. He looked back at the stars. When we finally reached the stars, we made a promise. Not a law, not a treaty, just a promise to ourselves. We would never let another species suffer the way we suffered. We would never ignore a cry for help. We would never send half measures when full measures were needed. But we cannot repay you. We did not come for payment, Minyu smiled. We came because you asked, that is enough. Did not know what to say. In his 100 years of life, he had never met a species that helped without expecting something in return. It went against everything he understood about the galaxy. You are strange creatures, he finally said. Yes, Minyu agreed, we are. A beep came from Minyu's communicator. He answered it. His voice came through, tense and professional. Captain, our sensors have detected a ship at the edge of the system. It matches configuration. It is not approaching. It appears to be watching. His blood went cold. They had found them. Minyu's expression did not change. He simply nodded. Understood, keep tracking. Report any movement. Yes, Captain. The communication ended. Minyu looked at. It seems your raiders have arrived, he said calmly. Do not worry, that is why we brought the warships. He walked back toward the colony, leaving alone on the platform. The elder looked up at the human warships hanging in the sky. For the first time in months, he felt something he had forgotten. Hope. The scout ship watched from the shadows. It had been there for 3 days now, circling at the edge of sensor range like a hungry predator waiting for the right moment to strike. Commander stood on his bridge and studied the data. 17 human ships, 7 of them warships. This was not what he had expected. Colony 7 was supposed to be an easy target, weak, isolated, dying. His fleet had been planning the raid for months. They would take the colonists as slaves, strip the settlement of resources, and leave nothing but ash. But now the humans had arrived, and everything had changed. Knew about humans, every knew about humans. They were newcomers to the galaxy, barely 2 centuries old among the stars. But in that short time they had built a reputation. They fought like demons. They died like fools. They threw themselves into battles they could not win and somehow won anyway. The old empires called them unpredictable. They called them dangerous. But was not afraid. He had 32 ships. The humans had only 7 warships. The math was simple. The humans were outnumbered. He sent a transmission to the human fleet. Human vessels, this is Commander of the Syndicate. You are in territory claimed by the Syndicate. The colony belongs to us. Leave now and we will allow you to depart in peace. Stay and you will be destroyed. He waited. The response came quickly. A human voice, calm and cold. Commander, this is Captain Minyu Park of the United Nations Earth Ship Solidarity. The colony is under the protection of Earth. Any hostile action against this colony or its people will be considered an act of war against humanity. We will not leave. I suggest you do. Laughed. The human was brave, but bravery meant nothing against superior numbers. You have 7 warships, Captain. I have 32. Your threat is meaningless. Perhaps, the human replied, but I should warn you, humans do not threaten, we promise. The transmission ended, stared at the screen. Then he turned to his officers. Begin gathering the fleet. We attack in 2 days. Down on the colony, the humans worked faster than ever. They knew time was running out. Doctor had not slept in 4 days. She lived on coffee and determination. Her team had set up a full laboratory in the colony's medical center. Equipment lined the walls. Screens displayed data that scrolled endlessly. In the center of it all, stared at a microscope, her eyes red with exhaustion. I found something, she said. Healer rushed to her side. He had been her assistant since the humans arrived. He had learned more from her in 4 days than he had learned in 10 years of training. What is it? Pulled up an image on the main screen. It showed the plague pathogen thousands of times. It was ugly, a twisted mass of genetic material wrapped in a protein shell. Look at the structure, said. Do you see these markers? Looked, he did not understand at first. Then his eyes went wide. Those are not natural. No, they are not. His voice was hard. This pathogen was engineered. Someone created it. Someone designed it specifically to kill. Who would do such a thing? I do not know, but I intend to find out. She turned back to her equipment. First, I will create a cure. Then I will find the ones responsible. She worked through the night. By morning, she had a prototype. By evening, she had tested it on tissue samples. By the next morning, she was ready for human trials. The first patient was a young female named. She was 12 years old. Her skin had turned gray and she could barely breathe. Her mother sat beside her, holding her hand, praying to gods that had not answered. Approached carefully, she explained the treatment, she explained the risks. The mother agreed immediately. Her daughter was going to die anyway. What was there to lose? The injection took only seconds. Then they waited. An hour passed. Breathing steadied. 2 hours passed. The gray color began to fade from her skin. 3 hours passed. She opened her eyes. Mother, she whispered. The mother screamed with joy. She grabbed her daughter and held her tight, tears streaming down her face. Around them, others watched in amazement. Healers ran to prepare more doses. Within hours, the cure was being distributed throughout the colony. Watch from the corner, too tired to celebrate, stood beside her. You saved them, he said. You saved all of them. Not yet, replied. They are still coming. Outside, Chief Engineer Shin was finishing the last repairs. The mining equipment was working again, better than working. He had upgraded every system, replaced every worn part, improved every mechanism. The machines would run for another 50 years without major maintenance. He stood with his team, covered in grease and dirt, watching the equipment hum. Not bad for 48 hours, one of his engineers said. Grinned, not bad at all. A group of young miners approached. They had worked alongside the humans for days now. Their fear had turned to respect. Their respect had turned to friendship. Will you come back? One of them asked. After the fighting is over. Maybe, said, but you do not need us anymore. We taught you everything you need to know. You can maintain these machines yourselves now. The young miner looked at the ground. What if we want you to come back anyway? Laughed and put his hand on the miner's shoulder. Then send a message. We will come. That evening, Captain Minyu Park met with elder and counselor. Lieutenant translated, though by now, the leaders understood enough human language to follow most of the conversation. They will attack tomorrow, Minyu said. Our scouts have confirmed their fleet is gathering, 32 ships. His face was pale. 32 against 7, you cannot win. We can, we will. How can you be so certain? Minyu leaned forward. Because we have something they do not understand. We have something worth fighting for. What is that? You, Minyu looked at both of them. Your people, your colony, every person we have treated, every machine we have repaired, every meal we have shared. We did not come here to drop off supplies and leave. We came here to help, and we will not stop until the job is done. Spoke for the first time. But why? We are strangers, we are not your people. Why would you die for us? Answered before Minyu could speak. Her voice was soft but strong. Because we remember, she said. Long ago my species was alone. We suffered, we died. We prayed for help that never came. That memory lives in every human. It is written in our blood. When we hear a cry for help, we cannot ignore it. When we see people suffering, we cannot look away. It is not logic. It is not strategy. It is who we are. She paused. Someone should have helped us. No one did, so we became the ones who help because someone should. The room was silent, looked at the human woman with new eyes. He had lived for 100 years. He had met dozens of species. He had never met anyone like these humans. "You are a strange people," he said finally. "Yes," Minyu agreed with a smile. "We are." An alarm sounded. Red lights flashed. Minyu's communicator buzzed. He answered it. Admiral's voice came through, calm and steady. "Captain, the fleet has begun moving. They will arrive in 6 hours. All warships to battle stations." Minyu stood. He looked at and, "Stay here, protect your people. We will handle the rest." He walked out into the night, where shuttles were already waiting to take him back to his ship. Above, the stars were cold and distant, but among them, human warships were moving into position. The battle was about to begin. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a swarm of metal insects. 32 ships spread across the darkness, their weapons already powered, their shields already raised. Commander stood on his bridge and smiled. The humans had not run. They had stayed to fight. That was their mistake. "All ships," he ordered, "attack formation. Target the human warships first. Destroy them, then take the colony." The fleet surged forward. On the bridge of the Solidarity, Captain Minyu Park watched the enemy approach. His face showed no fear. His hands were steady on the armrests of his command chair. Around him, his crew worked in focused silence. "Admiral is on the command channel," his communications officer reported. "Put him through." Admiral's voice filled the bridge, calm and professional. "All ships, this is Admiral. The enemy outnumbers us 4-1. They expect us to break. They expect us to run. They are wrong. Today we show them what humans are made of. Defensive pattern Alpha. Protect the hospital ships. Protect the colony. Not one vessel gets through. Am I clear?" 7 voices answered as one. "Yes, Admiral." "Then let us begin." The 7 human warships moved into formation. They formed a curved line between the colony and the approaching fleet. Behind them, the hospital ships and engineering vessels retreated to safety. The supply carriers moved to the planet's surface, where they could provide emergency support. The first shots came from the bright beams of energy streaked across the void, aimed at the human ships. The Solidarity shuddered as its shields absorbed the impact. "Return fire," Minyu ordered. The human ships responded. Their weapons were different from this, faster, more precise. Each shot found its target. The first vessel lost its engines. The second lost its weapons. The third exploded in a ball of fire. Commander watched in shock. 3 ships gone in the first exchange. This was not possible. Humans were supposed to be clumsy fighters. They were supposed to panic under pressure. Why were they not panicking? "Increase attack speed," he ordered. "Overwhelm them with numbers." The fleet pushed forward, 29 ships against 7. The math still favored them. They could absorb losses. The humans could not. But the humans did not fight like other species. They did not stay in one place and trade shots. They moved. They danced. Their ships worked together like parts of a single machine. When one ship was targeted, another moved to cover it. When they tried to flank, the humans anticipated and countered. Every attack was answered. Every trick was predicted. Minyu commanded from the center of the formation. His ship took the most fire. He did not care. His shields held. His crew performed perfectly. They had trained for this moment for years. Now the training was paying off. Vessels attempting to break through on the left flank, his tactical officer reported. "Vector ships 3 and 4 to intercept. Tell Captain Sara to use her torpedoes." "Yes, Captain." 2 human warships broke from the formation and raced to meet the flanking. The battle there was brief and brutal. The ships found themselves caught in a crossfire. 2 of them exploded. 3 more retreated with heavy damage. Hours passed. The fighting did not stop. They kept coming. The humans kept killing them. On the planet below, the watch through sensor screens. They could not look away. Elder stood at the front, his hands clenched at his sides. Beside him, Counselor prayed silently. Young had abandoned his medical duties to watch. Even the patients in the sick ward asked for updates. "How many have they destroyed?" asked. 12 ships, a technician answered. "The humans have lost none." Could not believe it. None against 12. "None, Elder. 2 human ships have taken damage, but they are still fighting." It was impossible. It went against everything new about warfare. Numbers were supposed to matter. Superior forces were supposed to win. But the humans did not care about numbers. They did not care about odds. They only cared about winning. In space, the battle continued. Commander was no longer smiling. Half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. His remaining ships were beginning to lose their nerve. Some captains were already talking about retreat. "We cannot win this," one of them said over the command channel. "They are too strong." Silence snapped. "They are only 7 ships. We still outnumber them." "We outnumbered them at the start. It did not matter. They fight like nothing I have ever seen." Cut the channel. He stared at the human warships hung in the darkness, damaged but unbowed. They had taken everything his fleet had thrown at them and asked for more. He made a decision. Pride was not worth dying for. "All ships," he ordered, "prepare boarding parties. If we cannot destroy them from outside, we will take them from within." Dozens of small craft launched from the fleet. They streaked toward the human ships, carrying soldiers armed for close combat, smiled grimly. Humans were good with their ships, but surely they could not fight on foot as well. He was wrong. The first boarding party reached the Solidarity. They cut through the hull and poured into the corridor beyond. They expected panicking humans. They found Marines. The human Marines wore heavy armor and carried weapons designed for ship combat. They moved in teams of 4, covering each other, advancing and retreating in perfect coordination. The soldiers had numbers. The humans had training. The fighting in the corridors was savage. They died in waves. The humans lost a few of their own, but for every human that fell, 10 joined them. The boarding parties were slaughtered. On the bridge, Minyu received reports from all 7 warships. Every boarding attempt had failed. The soldiers had been repelled. "Damage report," he ordered. "Minor hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. 12 Marines wounded. 2 dead." 2 dead. Minyu closed his eyes for a moment. Every death was a failure. Every death was a friend lost. But he could not grieve now. The battle was not over. "Continue firing, push them back." The human ships surged forward for the first time. They had been defending for hours. Now they attacked. The remaining vessels were caught off guard. They had expected the humans to stay in their defensive line. They had not expected aggression. Commander watched his fleet crumble. 15 ships remained, then 12, then 9, then 5. "Retreat," he finally ordered. "All ships retreat." 5 vessels turned and fled into hyperspace. The battle was over. On the Solidarity, the crew erupted in cheers. Minyu did not celebrate. He looked at the wreckage of the fleet scattered across the void. 18 ships destroyed, 9 disabled, 5 escaped. He thought about the 2 Marines who had died. He would write letters to their families. He would tell them that their sons and daughters had died protecting strangers. He hoped that would bring some comfort. He knew it would not bring enough. His communicator buzzed. Admiral's voice came through. "Captain Park, well done. All ships report in. We have wounded 43 across the fleet, Admiral. No more dead." "Then we did our job. Get the wounded to the hospital ships. Begin recovery operations on the disabled enemy vessels. Some of them might have survivors." "We are rescuing survivors." "We are." The Admiral's voice was firm. "We are not like them, Captain. We do not leave enemies to die in the void. We are better than that." Minyu nodded. "Understood, Admiral." Below on the planet they were silent. They had watched the entire battle. They had seen 7 ships defeat 32. They had seen humans die to protect people they had never met. Elder walked away from the screens. His legs were weak. His heart was pounding. He had seen many things in his long life. He had never seen anything like this. Counselor found him sitting alone in a quiet room. "They won," she said softly. Yes, his voice was distant. "They won." "You doubted them." "I did," he looked at her. "I was wrong." Outside, the human ships began their rescue operations. They pulled survivors from burning wreckage. They treated their wounds. They gave them food and water. The soldiers could not understand. They had tried to kill these humans. Why were the humans saving them? None of the humans could explain it in words. It was simply who they were. The morning after the battle was quiet. Smoke still rose from distant parts of the sky where wreckage burned as it fell through the atmosphere. But the colony was peaceful. For the first time in months, no one was dying. Doctor walked through the medical center, checking on her patients. Most of them were recovering now. The cure had worked. The plague was defeated. Children who had been hours from death were now sitting up in their beds, asking for food, asking for their parents, asking when they could go outside and play. Smiled at each of them. She was exhausted. She had not slept properly in a week, but seeing those children alive made everything worth it. Young Healer followed her on her rounds. He had become her shadow, learning everything she could teach. He had already memorized the cure's formula. He could produce it himself now. The colony would never face this plague again. "You should rest," he said. "You have done enough." "Not quite," replied. "There is one more thing I need to do." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small device. It was her personal medical scanner, a tool she had carried for 15 years. It was old and worn but still functional. She had saved hundreds of lives with it. She held it out too. "Take this," she said. Stared at her. "I cannot, this is yours." "And now it is yours," pressed it into his hands. "You are a good healer, you care about your patients, you work hard, you learn fast. This scanner will help you save lives when I am gone. Think of it as a gift from a colleague." Held the scanner like it was made of gold. His eyes were wet. "I will never forget you," he said. Good smiled. That was the plan. Across the colony, Chief Engineer Shin was finishing his final inspections. The mining equipment was running perfectly. The power systems had been upgraded. The water recyclers had been repaired and improved. The colony's infrastructure was better than it had ever been. His engineering team was packing up their tools, preparing to return to the ships, but took a moment to sit with the workers who had helped them over the past week. They gathered in a circle, sharing a simple meal. The food was strange to both groups, but they ate together anyway. Language barriers did not matter. They had worked side by side. They had built things together. That was a bond stronger than words. "Will the machines last?" one of the young asked. "They will last forever if you take care of them," said. "I left manuals for everything. Diagrams, repair schedules, follow them, and you will never need outside help again." "But what if something goes wrong that we cannot fix?" Grinned, "Then send a message. I will come back and fix it myself." The young miner laughed. "You promise?" "I promise." They shook hands. It was a human gesture, but the had learned it quickly. It felt right. Lieutenant spent her last hours in the colony working on a different project. She had created a database of human language lessons, cultural information, and diplomatic protocols. It would help future interact with humans. It would prevent misunderstandings. It would build bridges. She presented it to Counselor in a small ceremony. "This is everything you need to understand us," explained. "Our history, our customs, our jokes. We are not easy to understand, but if you study this, you will come close." Accepted the gift with trembling hands. "Why do you give us so much? We asked for so little." "Because we want you to succeed," said. "We want you to thrive. We want you to join us among the stars as equals. That is the only payment we need. Your success is our reward." That afternoon, Captain Minu Park requested a final meeting with Elder. They met in the same observation room where they had stood days ago, watching human warships arrive. Now those warships were preparing to leave. Their mission was complete. Looked different than before. The suspicion was gone from his eyes. The fear had faded. In their place was something Minu had seen many times before in other species they had helped. It was respect. It was gratitude. It was the beginning of friendship. "I owe you an apology," said. "For what?" "For doubting you, for fearing you. When your ships arrived, I thought you had come to conquer us. I thought you wanted our resources, our people, our world. I was wrong." Minu nodded. "You were not wrong to be cautious. The galaxy is full of species who take more than they give. You had no reason to trust us. But I should have seen what you were. From the first moment you gave and gave and gave. You asked for nothing, you demanded nothing, you simply helped." Paused. "I have lived 100 years. I have met many species. I have never met anyone like humans." "We are not special," Minu said. "We are just people. We have flaws, we make mistakes. We fight among ourselves more than we should. But when we see someone in pain, we cannot look away. When we hear a cry for help, we cannot ignore it. It is not because we are good. It is because we remember what it was like to suffer alone." Was silent for a long moment. "Your species has a great gift," he finally said. "You feel too much. You care too much. Other species see this as weakness. I see now that it is your greatest strength." Minu extended his hand, had learned the gesture. He took the human's hand and shook it firmly. "If you ever need help again," Minu said, "send a message. We will come." "I believe you," smiled. It was the first time Minu had seen him smile. "And perhaps one day we will come when you call." "I would like that." The human ships departed that evening. The colony gathered to watch them leave. Hundreds of stood in the streets, looking up at the sky. The 17 vessels rose slowly, their engines glowing like stars. They climbed higher and higher until they were just dots of light among the endless darkness. Then they jumped to hyperspace and were gone. They stood in silence. Some of them wept. Some of them laughed. Most of them simply stared at the empty sky, trying to understand what they had witnessed. Elder walked to the communication center. He sat before the transmitter, the same device had used to call for help. But he was not sending a distress call. He was sending a message to the Galactic Council. He pressed the button and began to speak. "This is Elder of Colony 7. I am sending this message to all species in the galaxy. I am sending it because you deserve to know the truth about humanity." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "When our colony was dying, we sent a request to Earth. We asked for antibiotics and spare parts. They sent us 17 ships, hospital vessels, engineering teams, warships to protect us. They sent us enough medicine to cure 1,000 colonies. They sent us enough engineers to rebuild our entire world. They sent us enough soldiers to defeat an army." He took a breath. "We could not pay them, we had nothing to offer. They did not care, they came anyway, they healed our sick. They repaired our machines, they taught us their knowledge. They fought and died to protect people they had never met." His voice grew stronger. "They attacked with 32 warships. The humans had 7. They expected to destroy them. Instead, the humans destroyed them. And when the battle was over, the humans rescued the survivors of the enemy fleet. They treated their wounds. They gave them food and water. They showed mercy to those who had tried to kill them." He leaned closer to the transmitter. "I have heard the stories you tell about humanity, that they are dangerous, that they are unpredictable, that they cannot be trusted. I'm here to tell you those stories are wrong. Humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy, not because they are violent, but because they care. They care so much that they will die for strangers. They care so much that they will cross the galaxy to answer a call for help. They care so much that they will give everything they have and ask for nothing in return. He sat back. If you are ever in trouble, call the humans. They will come, I know this now, they will always come. He ended the transmission. Months later, another species sent a message to Earth. They were a small civilization on the edge of explored space. Their crops had failed. Their water supplies were running low. They were facing famine. They asked for food and water. Earth did not send a cargo ship. They sent farmers to teach new growing techniques. They sent water purifiers to clean contaminated supplies. They sent engineers to build irrigation systems. They sent doctors to treat the malnutrition. And they sent a fleet just in case. Because somewhere in the galaxy someone was always suffering, and humanity had made a promise. They would answer every call. They would help every species. They would never stop. It was not because they expected thanks. It was not because they wanted power. It was because they remembered their own history. They remembered the pain of being alone. They remembered the prayers that no one answered. And they had sworn that no one would ever feel that way again. Not while humans still flew among the stars. Not while humans still remembered. Not while humans still cared.